In a galaxy where the echoes of forgotten wars still linger, the great salvage yards stretch like endless deserts of broken steel and silent shadows. Once, these places were battlefields where titans clashed, where mighty fleets burned like falling stars, and where empires rose and fell in fire. Now they are graveyards of giants, filled with twisted metal, shattered hulls, and drifting bones of machines that once shook the heavens. Among these ruins, scavengers move like insects, hunting for scraps to sell, hoping to find something that might buy them another day of life. And in the middle of this endless sea of wreckage walks a man named Ethan Kane. Ethan is not a hero or a soldier. He is just a salvager, a man who survives by searching for broken machines and forgotten tools. His clothes are worn, his boots cracked, his exosuit patched with more rust than armor. But his eyes still shine with quiet determination, for every piece of metal he drags out of the junkyard is another credit, another chance to keep living in a galaxy that does not care if he breathes or not. On this day, like countless days before, Ethan roams the endless scrapyard under a fading red sun. His scanner hums softly, sweeping over twisted heaps of alien wrecks, searching for energy signals that might mean working parts. The wind whistles through broken towers of steel, carrying with it the ghostly groans of old ships settling deeper into the dirt. Ethan stops when his scanner flickers strangely, pulsing in a rhythm he has never seen before. He frowns, taps the screen, but the signal grows stronger, calling him deeper into the heart of the graveyard. At first he thinks it is just another broken reactor, maybe a power cell, maybe something worth a few credits. But the signal is steady, alive, like a heartbeat buried under the rubble. Curiosity pushes him forward. He climbs over twisted beams and crushed hulls until he sees it, a vast dark shape half buried under centuries of debris. At first it looks like nothing more than a broken ship, another corpse of war, but as he brushes away the dust, strange symbols glow faintly across the surface. The hull is scarred with burn marks, clawed by weapons no human has ever made, but the lines are smooth, almost alive, as if the ship itself was grown instead of built. Ethan's breath catches in his throat. He has never seen technology like this. Alien wrecks are rare, but this one feels different. This one feels wrong, like it should not be here, like it should not even exist. He places his hand against the cold surface, and for a moment nothing happens. Then, softly, like the spark of a dying ember, the symbols flicker with pale blue light. Ethan stumbles back in shock, his heart racing. Machines in the yard are dead, stripped long ago of power, yet this one responds to his touch, as though it has been waiting, as though it knows him. The glow fades, but not before Ethan hears something faint, almost like a whisper in the air. He freezes, ears straining, certain he imagined it. But the sound comes again, low and broken, like a voice trying to remember how to speak. I remember fire. The words echo inside his skull more than in the air, chilling him to the bone. He looks around wildly, but he is alone. Only the wreck and the wind. His chest tightens with fear, yet his hands tremble not with panic but with awe. He has touched countless machines, countless relics, but never one that spoke back. He steps closer again, running his hand over the glowing lines, and feels the faint hum of power beneath the surface, like the heartbeat of something vast and ancient, something that refuses to die. A thought claws its way into his mind. If he can drag this wreck out, if he can sell even a piece of it, he will be rich beyond his dreams. But another thought lingers darker. What if this ship is not a wreck? What if it is something more? The sun dips lower, painting the scrapyard in long crimson shadows. Ethan stands before the buried vessel, torn between greed and dread, between the promise of fortune and the whisper of danger. The wind dies suddenly, as if the world itself is holding its breath. Then the voice returns, stronger this time, heavy with sorrow and rage. I remember battle. I remember betrayal. Ethan's blood runs cold. The wreck is not dead. It is sleeping. And now, because of him, it is waking. Ethan did not sleep that night. The words still echoed in his mind, broken yet alive, like the dying breath of a ghost that refused to fade. He sat beside the wreck, watching the faint blue veins of light that pulsed across its hull, waiting for them to die away. But they did not. The ship, if it was a ship at all, seemed to breathe slowly, like a sleeping beast hidden beneath the steel skin. Every time Ethan thought about leaving, he felt a pull, like invisible hands gripping his chest, drawing him back to the silent giant half buried in the dirt. Something about it whispered to him that walking away would mean more than losing fortune, It would mean abandoning a secret too great to be left behind. At dawn, with the sky still stained in blood-red light, Ethan forced himself to act. He powered up his salvage rig, clamped the cables to the alien hull, and dragged the massive wreck inch by inch toward his workshop at the edge of the scrapyard. It was like pulling a mountain. The rig's engines screamed, metal groaned, the earth tore open under the strain, but slowly the Titan yielded. By the time he got it under his roof, Ethan was drenched in sweat, his hands blistered, his rig smoking from the effort. He stood back and stared at the thing that now filled his workshop like a sleeping god trapped in chains of dust and shadow. His first thought was simple: strip it. Strip it for parts, sell the metal, sell the circuits, sell the glowing panels. One plate from this thing could pay for a year of food and fuel. But when his tools touched the hull, the lights surged. Sparks danced like living fireflies across the surface, and the voice came again, clearer, stronger. Awake. Awake. Ethan dropped his cutter, stumbling back, his heart pounding against his ribs. His breath fogged in the sudden chill as the air around the wreck vibrated with energy. It was not just a machine anymore. It was a presence, heavy and vast, pressing into his thoughts like a tide. For hours he sat staring at it, too afraid to touch, too curious to stop. Finally, with shaking hands, he climbed into a jagged opening torn into the side of the vessel. The inside was darker than the void between stars, the air thick with dust and silence. Strange wires and alien conduits hung like veins, glowing faintly as though the ship's blood had begun to flow again. Every step he took echoed like thunder in a tomb. Then he saw it, the core chamber. A vast sphere of black metal suspended in a cage of light, humming with power so ancient it seemed alive. His footsteps faltered, and the whispering voice filled his head once more. Fragments. I remember fragments. The voice was deep now, like stone grinding against stone, layered with pain and fury. Images burned behind Ethan's eyes, flashes of fire, fleets tearing apart in the void, monstrous shapes locked in battle so colossal the stars themselves seemed to shatter. He gasped, clutching his skull, as visions poured into him faster than thought. He saw the vessel, not as a wreck, but alive, roaring across battlefields with weapons like suns, tearing enemy fleets into dust. He saw worlds burning, titans clashing in storms of light, and screams of entire civilizations swallowed by silence. Then the vision cracked, like shattered glass, and silence returned. Ethan dropped to his knees, trembling, his lungs dragging in air as if he had run 1,000 miles. His voice broke in the stillness. What are you? The answer came slowly, the words heavy with memory and sorrow. Titan. I am Titan. Ethan staggered back, his pulse racing. He had heard stories whispered in bars, tales told by old spacers about the Titans of the Forgotten Wars, living warships, half machine, half being, created not by men but by something older, something darker. Most thought they were legends, like ghosts to scare children. But here one lay before him, broken, sleeping, and now stirring awake. Titan's voice faltered, as though its memory was torn. I fought. I was betrayed. I was cast into silence. Ethan could barely breathe. His hands shook as he touched the glowing surface of the core, and for a moment he felt not metal but flesh, the heartbeat of something alive. The Titan's pulse throbbed under his palm, each beat filling him with dread and awe. Then the workshop lights flickered violently, and his scanners screamed. A surge of energy erupted from the Titan, blasting outward like a beacon into the void. Ethan scrambled to shut it down, pulling wires, slamming switches, but it was useless. The Titan's awakening had announced itself to the stars. Signal, Titan murmured. They will come. Ethan froze, his stomach dropping into ice. He knew what those words meant. Out in the galaxy, scavengers hunted treasures. Warlords hungered for lost weapons. Armies of mercenaries prowled the void for any advantage. If they knew a Titan still lived, they would burn whole worlds to claim it. And the Pulse Titan had just released. It was a flare in the dark, a scream across space. Somewhere, someone had heard it. The air grew heavy again, and Titan's voice sank low, filled with dread. Enemies. Shadows. They will come for me, and for you. Ethan backed away slowly, his mind spinning with fear and disbelief. He had thought he found a fortune, a broken relic to strip and sell. But now he realized he had pulled a god of war out of its grave. And in doing so, He had lit a fire that the galaxy would soon see. Far above, beyond the scrapyard skies, ships were already moving. Eyes were turning. The hunters had heard the call. And they were coming. Night fell heavy over the scrapyard, but Ethan Kane could not escape the feeling that shadows were already moving in the sky above him. The Titan rested in his workshop like a sleeping beast, its faint blue veins pulsing with life, its voice whispering in the corners of his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of battle, stars burning, fleets torn apart, screams swallowed in silence. The Titan's memories were broken, but what little Ethan had seen was enough to freeze his blood. If even half of it was true, then this thing was no ordinary relic. It was a weapon, a monster forged in war, and he was now bound to it whether he liked it or not. The next day, Ethan tried to keep busy. He reinforced the workshop doors, checked his scanners, and told himself he could still cut Titan apart for scrap before anyone noticed. But deep inside he knew the truth. The pulse of energy that had burst from Titan's core last night was no small signal. It was a scream into the void, a flare that no scavenger or warlord could ignore. He expected raiders or small-time thieves. Instead, his scanners flickered to life with something far worse. 3 ships entered orbit above the scrapyard, sleek, dark vessels with sharp wings like knives. They carried no trade beacons, no markings of merchants. They moved like predators, silent and patient. Ethan's heart pounded. These were not salvagers. They were hunters. He shut off the scanners and ducked back into the shadows, praying they would not see him, but he already knew they had. A voice crackled across the old comms tower outside, metallic and cold. "We know what you found. Hand over the relic, and you live." Ethan's blood turned to ice. He glanced at the Titan, silent and glowing faintly in the dark. His first instinct was to run, abandon the wreck and save his life, but before he could take a step, the Titan's voice whispered inside his head, calm and unyielding. "Do not run. If you flee, they will kill you. If you fight, I can protect you." Ethan shook his head in disbelief, whispering back through gritted teeth. "Protect me. You can barely speak." The Titan's response came like a low growl. "Awakening is slow, but my weapons remember." The first blast came a moment later, shaking the ground as one of the hunter ships fired a warning shot into the yard. Towers of scrap toppled, flames leapt into the night, and the air filled with the roar of engines. Ethan grabbed his old rifle, though he knew it was useless against ships like those. He stumbled toward the Titan, shouting, "If you're going to help, do it now." The hull of the Titan flared with light, brighter than ever before, blue veins racing like lightning across its scarred skin. The ground trembled as hidden mechanisms shifted deep inside its core. Panels unfolded, broken systems sparked, and with a deafening roar, a shockwave of energy burst outward, knocking Ethan off his feet. The hunter ships reeled back as the Titan's eyes, 2 colossal cores of blazing light, snapped open for the first time in centuries. Enemies detected, the Titan thundered, its voice no longer a whisper but a storm. "I will fight." Ethan scrambled to his feet, shielding his eyes from the brilliance as the Titan's weapons powered up. From its sides erupted streams of pure energy, arcing like spears of lightning into the sky. The first hunter ship was sliced in half, its wreck raining down in burning fragments. The other 2 dived low, strafing the scrapyard with torrents of plasma. Explosions lit the night as metal towers collapsed around Ethan, but the Titan moved with terrifying precision. What looked like broken scars along its hull opened into cannons, spitting fire that ripped through the hunter's shields. Ethan stumbled behind a wall of scrap, staring in awe and terror. This was no machine. This was no wreck. This was a god of war waking from its grave. The Titan's voice rang in his skull, cold and fierce. "Do not fear. You are inside my shield." A shimmering wall of light spread around the workshop, deflecting stray blasts as the hunters raged above. Ethan felt the heat of battle through his bones, as though the Titan's fury was pouring into him. The hunters regrouped, flying in tight formation, and unleashed their combined fire. The shield cracked, the workshop shook, and Ethan cried out as the roof began to collapse. For a moment, he thought it was over. But then the Titan's light blazed brighter than ever, and with a sound like thunder splitting the heavens, a beam of pure destruction tore upward. The second hunter ship disintegrated in a flash, leaving only burning wreckage. The third tried to flee, engine screaming as it clawed for the stars. Titan's voice dropped low, dark and merciless. None escape. One final blast erupted, and the last hunter was gone, swallowed in fire. Silence fell. Smoke drifted over the scrapyard, glowing with embers. The ground was littered with wreckage and ash. Ethan stood trembling, his rifle forgotten in the dirt, staring at the Titan that now loomed above him, alive and terrible. Its blue veins pulsed steadily, its eyes burning like suns. The shield faded, but the voice still filled his mind, softer now but heavy with meaning. I am not whole. My memory is broken. But I remember enough. I remember war. Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry as dust. What did you just do? They'll come looking for those ships. They'll know something's here now. The Titan's reply was slow, almost mournful. They already know. The signal I sent has reached far. Others will come. More powerful than these. They will not stop until I am theirs again. Ethan's chest tightened as dread crawled through him. He looked at the burning sky, knowing the Titan was right. Tonight was only the beginning. Somewhere in the dark, word had spread, a Titan lived. And the galaxy was already on its way. Ethan had never known silence could feel so heavy. The scrapyard that once rang with the clatter of his tools and the lonely hum of his scanners now lay in ruins, scattered with burning fragments of the hunter ships. Smoke curled into the crimson sky, and the stench of scorched metal burned his throat. He sat on the edge of a twisted beam, his chest heaving, staring at the Titan that had saved his life but also shattered it. The vessel stood half awake, glowing veins running along its armored skin, its eyes still blazing faintly. It had shown its strength, unleashed fire that could tear apart fleets, and in doing so had changed Ethan's world forever. Inside his skull, the Titan's voice echoed, low and steady. You are afraid. Ethan let out a bitter laugh, rubbing the sweat and grime from his forehead. Afraid? You just brought down 3 warships like they were nothing. The whole sector's going to see the smoke. I'm not afraid, Titan. I'm terrified. The vessel pulsed with dim light, as if considering his words, then spoke again. I was built for battle. Fear is the shadow that follows me always. But you must understand, Salvager, what you witnessed tonight was only a fragment of my power. I am broken. My memory fractured. My body incomplete. Ethan swallowed hard. He wanted to walk away, to abandon this monster before more hunters arrived. But something in the Titan's voice, something like sorrow hidden behind the fury, held him there. Against his better judgment, he climbed back into the wreck, past the broken hull and into the core chamber where the black sphere pulsed softly like a beating heart. He placed his hand on the surface, and at once his vision blurred, the world dissolving into a storm of light. He was no longer in the workshop. He stood in the void of space, surrounded by fire and chaos. Colossal fleets filled the darkness, alien ships with jagged wings clashing against machines that glowed with power beyond imagination. At the center of it all, he saw Titans, vast living war machines like the one in his workshop, but whole and alive, their bodies gleaming with light, their weapons tearing reality apart. Ethan gasped as he realized he was seeing through Titan's memories. He felt its rage as it hurled fire into the enemy. He felt its sorrow as one by one, its kin fell, screaming into silence. And then he felt something darker, a moment of betrayal. The vision sharpened. Titan fought beside its kind, striking down the enemy with fire brighter than suns. But then an order came, a command from voices it trusted, voices of its own creators. The order was cruel, to burn an innocent world, to silence those who had no weapons, no soldiers, only voices pleading for mercy. Titan hesitated. Its creators demanded obedience, but Titan chose defiance. It refused. For that defiance, it was cast out, ambushed by its own kind, struck down by the very Titans it once called brothers. Ethan's chest tightened as the memory shattered into screams of fire, betrayal, and silence. He tore his hand away, stumbling back, his lungs dragging in air. Titan's voice followed him out of the vision, quiet, almost broken. I disobeyed. I chose mercy. And for that, I was hunted, shattered, abandoned in silence. Ethan leaned against the wall, shaking his head. You're telling me you were punished for saving people? That's why they left you here. That's why you were forgotten. The Titan's glow dimmed, as though weighed down by grief. I was made to fight. To question my orders was treachery. To feel mercy was weakness. They did not forgive me. They never will. Ethan stood in silence, torn between fear and pity. The stories he had heard in bars and outposts painted the Titans as monsters, merciless weapons that left nothing but ashes behind. But this Titan had chosen mercy, had defied its own kind to protect life. Perhaps it was not a monster. Or perhaps it was worse, a monster that wished it wasn't. Suddenly, alarms wailed across his scanners. Ethan rushed outside, his heart sinking as he saw the readings. Dozens of ships were entering the system, far more than the 3 hunters from before. They moved in formation, disciplined, ruthless. Not scavengers this time. Not pirates. Soldiers. A fleet. Titan's voice filled his head, steady but grim. The signal reached them. They have come. Ethan's hands trembled. Who are they? Titan's reply was like a shadow falling over his soul. The enemy I fought long ago. The enemy I betrayed. They come not only for me, but to erase you, for you have awakened me. Ethan looked to the skies, where streaks of fire marked the arrival of the fleet. His world, once so small and quiet, had been swallowed by war. He turned back to the glowing vessel, his voice raw. If they're coming, then tell me, Titan, are you going to fight them? For a long moment, the Titan was silent. Then the ground shook as its great frame shifted, panels unfolding, weapons stirring awake. Its voice thundered with the weight of ages. I will fight. But I am not whole. My memories are broken, my power incomplete. If I fall again, there will be no waking. You, Ethan Kane, you must choose. Will you stand with me? Or will you run and leave the galaxy to burn? Ethan's throat tightened, his mind screaming to run, to abandon this cursed machine before it dragged him into battles he could never survive. But as he stared into the burning sky, where the enemy fleet descended like a storm, he felt something shift inside him. He had spent his whole life hiding among the bones of giants, a scavenger living off the scraps of old wars. Now one of those giants had risen, broken but alive, asking him to stand. He clenched his fists, teeth grinding. The fleet drew closer, their weapons glowing like angry suns. Titan's eyes blazed, its voice rising in a roar that shook the scrapyard. The war begins again. Ethan whispered through clenched teeth, more to himself than to the Titan, then let's survive it. The first enemy ships broke through the clouds, their cannons aimed at the scrapyard. And in that moment, man and Titan stood together, facing the storm. The night sky burned as the enemy fleet descended, black shapes blotting out the stars, their engines roaring like thunder. Ethan Kane stood at the edge of the scrapyard, his rifle useless in his hands, staring at the swarm of ships moving in formation. They were not scavengers, not raiders. These were soldiers, disciplined, merciless, and armed with weapons far beyond anything Ethan had ever seen. The ground shook as their cannons powered up, casting long shadows across the wrecks below. And beside him, towering like a god reborn, the Titan stirred awake, its veins of light blazing brighter than ever, its voice thundering through the air and inside Ethan's skull. They have come. The enemy. The betrayers. They seek to claim me once more. Ethan's chest tightened. Then we fight, he said, though his voice cracked under the weight of fear. He had no plan, no strategy. He was just a scavenger armed with nothing but desperation. But the Titan answered with a roar that shook the scrapyard. Plates unfolded across its armored skin, cannons rising from the scars of its body, light surging through its core until the ground glowed beneath its frame. Then we fight. The enemy fleet struck first. A rain of firestorm plasma descended from the sky, slamming into the scrapyard with deafening explosions. Towers of scrap metal toppled, the earth split apart, and Ethan was thrown to the ground as shockwaves tore through the air. He scrambled behind a wall of twisted steel, his hands shaking, ears ringing, eyes fixed on the Titan as it rose fully for the first time. With a sound like thunder splitting the heavens, the Titan's weapons came alive. Bolts of energy erupted upward, streaking like spears of light into the night sky. The first wave of enemy ships exploded in blinding flashes, their wreckage raining down like burning meteors. But for every ship that fell, more descended. Dozens became hundreds, surrounding the scrapyard like a swarm of locusts. Their cannons tore into the earth, their beams clawed at Titan's shield. Ethan shielded his eyes as the battlefield became a storm of fire, the scrapyard transformed into a crucible of destruction. Titan's voice cut through the chaos, fierce and unyielding. "Stay near me. My shield will protect you." Ethan clutched his rifle, though he knew it was useless. He stayed low, running when Titan commanded, dodging falling wreckage as enemy fire shattered the ground around him. Each time he thought the shield would fail, Titan unleashed another blast of devastating power, tearing entire formations of ships from the sky. Yet even through the storm, Ethan could feel it. Titan was straining. Its voice grew heavier, its light flickered. This was not its full strength. It was fighting wounded, its memory still fractured, its body incomplete. Through the smoke and fire, one ship descended lower than the rest. Sleek, black, with glowing crimson markings across its hull, it radiated authority. A command vessel. From it, a voice boomed across the comms, cold and venomous. "Titan, you are ours. You were forged for war, and you will return to war. Surrender, or be destroyed again." Titan's reply was a roar that echoed like a storm. "I will never bow. Not to you. Not again." The command ship opened fire, a massive cannon unleashing a beam that hammered into Titan's shield. The ground split apart, Ethan thrown from his cover as waves of energy surged through the scrapyard. Titan staggered under the force, its voice straining. "Ethan, I cannot hold alone. You must aid me." Ethan's breath caught. "Aid you? I'm just a scavenger. What could I possibly do?" Titan's eyes blazed as the voice thundered in his skull. "You are more than you know. When you touched my core, you bound to me. You are part of me now. Focus. Feel my power. Lend me your strength." Ethan shook his head, the world collapsing around him. But then his gaze lifted to the burning sky, to the command ship tearing the Titan apart, to the enemy fleet that would soon descend on every world beyond this scrapyard. His fear hardened into resolve. He stumbled into the core chamber, placing his hand on the pulsing black sphere once more. Instantly, fire consumed his vision. He felt Titan's power surge through him, rivers of light flooding his veins, his heartbeat syncing with the Titan's pulse. He saw what Titan saw, the enemy ships circling like wolves, the crack in its own shield, the core of the command vessel glowing with weakness. Titan's voice merged with his own thoughts. "Together, we fight as one." Ethan screamed as the energy roared through him, his body trembling with power too vast to contain. But he did not let go. Through him, Titan's weapons flared brighter than ever. Cannons unleashed torrents of light that ripped through the fleet, beams of destruction carving holes in the sky. Enemy ships disintegrated one by one, their screams swallowed in silence. The command vessel faltered under the onslaught, its crimson glow dimming. The enemy voice roared across the comms, furious and desperate. "You cannot escape what you are, Titan. You are death. You are betrayal." Titan's voice, merged with Ethan's, thundered in reply. "I am not your slave. I am not your weapon. I am free." With one final blast, the command ship shattered, exploding in a wave of fire that lit the night sky brighter than day. The fleet broke apart in chaos, survivors scattering into the void, fleeing the wrath of the awakened Titan. Silence fell again, broken only by the crackle of burning wreckage. Ethan collapsed to his knees inside the core chamber, gasping for breath, his body trembling from the power he had touched. Titan's voice filled the chamber, softer now, tinged with sorrow. "You fought well. But this is only the beginning. They will return, stronger, in greater numbers. And when they do, others like me will awaken. The war that was forgotten will rise again." Ethan pressed his hands to the cold floor, his chest heaving. His life as a scavenger was gone, consumed in fire. He looked up at the pulsing core, his voice hoarse. "Then we'll fight again. Together." Outside, the night sky smoldered, and far beyond, across the galaxy, the signal of the Titan's awakening spread like wildfire. Old powers stirred. Forgotten enemies turned their eyes once more. The galaxy had changed forever. And Ethan Kane, the scavenger who bought a wreck for scrap, now stood at the heart of a war older and darker than he could imagine. The battlefield lay silent, lit only by the smoldering wreckage of the enemy fleet. The scrapyard, once a graveyard of forgotten machines, was now a monument to destruction. Fires burned across the twisted metal planes, smoke rising into a sky torn apart by battle. Ethan Kane sat on the ground, his chest heaving, every muscle trembling from the surge of power that had coursed through him when he linked with the Titan. His hands still shook, his mind echoing with images that were not his own, memories of battles long past, of Titans soaring through the void, of betrayal and fire. He looked up at the massive vessel that loomed over him, glowing faintly as if catching its breath after the storm. Titan's voice came softer now, no longer a roar but a low, steady rumble. You endured the bond. Few could survive it. Fewer still could wield it. Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow, forcing a broken laugh. Survive it? I feel like I've been hit by a starship. But I saw what you saw. I felt it. The power. The rage. The mercy. He swallowed hard, his voice dropping lower. And I saw the truth. You didn't just fight them, you fought your own kind. The Titan's veins dimmed, its great frame shuddering as though burdened by memory. Yes. I fought my brothers and sisters. They obeyed. I defied. When ordered to slaughter the innocent, I refused. And for that, they turned their weapons upon me. I killed them, Ethan Kane. My own kin. That sin cannot be erased. The words hung heavy in the smoke-filled air. Ethan stared at the giant, his heart torn between awe and pity. You chose mercy. That's not a sin. That's what makes you different. Titan's light pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat struggling to steady itself. Different, yes. But also doomed. My kind will awaken when they sense me. Some will remember loyalty to our creators. Others will hunger for conquest. They will come. And the galaxy will burn again. Ethan rose unsteadily to his feet, brushing ash from his suit. His world had been small once, just a scavenger digging through bones of forgotten wars, dreaming of scraps to sell. Now he stood in the shadow of a living god of war, staring at the horizon where the stars still flickered with the fire of battle. He had seen enough to know the Titan spoke truth. The enemy would not stop. Others would come. The forgotten war was not forgotten at all, it was merely sleeping, waiting for this moment to wake. His gaze hardened as he stepped closer to the Titan's glowing core. Then we don't hide. We fight. You said it yourself, we're bound now. Whatever's coming, we face it together. For a long moment the Titan was silent. Then its deep voice rolled like thunder across the scrapyard. Together. The ground trembled as the Titan rose higher, its form unfolding with renewed strength. Where once it had seemed broken, scarred, and half dead, now its body glowed brighter, the bond with Ethan restoring parts of its power. The blue veins surged with life, its eyes blazed like suns, and the workshop roof crumbled completely under its towering frame. Ethan shielded his face from the radiance as Titan declared, I am whole enough to fight. But I am not the only one. Others sleep still. Guardians. Betrayers. Titans who wait in silence. When they awaken, the galaxy will face a choice, submit to war, or stand against it. Ethan's chest tightened at the weight of those words. He imagined worlds caught between living weapons, armies shattered under their fire, countless innocents swallowed in flames. And yet, he also imagined something else, a chance to fight back, a chance to stand where others had fallen, a chance to turn the tide of a war older than humanity itself. Then we'll find them, he said firmly. The ones who'll fight for mercy, like you did. We'll stop the ones who won't. Titan's eyes flared, and its voice resonated with a strange mixture of pride and sorrow. You speak as though you are one of us. Ethan let out a weary laugh. After tonight, I don't think I'm just a scavenger anymore. Above them, the smoke began to clear, revealing a sky full of stars. But those stars no longer felt distant, no longer silent. Somewhere out there, powers were stirring. Somewhere, other Titans had felt the pulse of this one's awakening. Enemies and allies alike would soon descend upon the galaxy. The war would not wait. Titan lowered its massive frame slightly, its voice dropping into something almost like a vow. Ethan Kane, you have awakened me. You carry my memory, my power, my burden. Know this, your life is no longer your own. You are bound to me, and through you, to the fate of the stars. Ethan met the glowing gaze without flinching. Then we make it count. For a brief moment, silence returned. The fires crackled low, the night air heavy with ash, the scrapyard a graveyard once more. But this time, something new stirred in the silence. Hope, fragile and dangerous, but alive. Far across the galaxy, beyond Ethan's sight, signals spread like ripples in dark water. On forgotten worlds, deep under oceans and buried in ancient ruins, sleeping titans stirred in their graves. Eyes flickered open. Memories of war ignited once more. Some woke with loyalty to their creators. Others woke with hunger for conquest. And a few, like the titan standing beside Ethan Kane, woke with the shadow of mercy burning in their hearts. The war of titans had begun again. And at its heart stood a scavenger who had once searched for scraps, now bound to a living god of battle. His life would never be small again. His choices would carve the fate of worlds. Ethan stared into the night sky, his voice low but steady. This was never about salvage. This was the beginning of war. The Titan's reply rumbled like distant thunder. Then let the galaxy prepare.